If you're a human on planet Earth who likes to try fun things, then join us for Space Science with Ashley.
Today we are going to be making volcanoes on Venus.
Volcanoes on Venus!
For this activity, you will need some yellow food coloring, a container that has a narrow top like a water bottle, a spoon, some baking soda, and of course, some vinegar. Years ago, scientists sent a probe to Venus's surface to check it out, but the surface of Venus is so inhospitable, it is over 800 degrees Fahrenheit, that the probe didn't last very long. So we still have little information about this planet, but what we know is pretty cool. Venus is made out of rock, but Venus's atmosphere is made of sulfuric acid. So if we were to visit Venus, it would be a very hot planet, and it would smell like rotten eggs.
Stinky.
Venus has a lot of volcanoes on its surface.
How many volcanoes do you think Venus has on its surface?
Anywhere from 1,500 or maybe even 100,000 volcanoes. That's a lot of volcanoes. So today we are actually going to be making one of those volcanoes that looks like the volcanoes on Venus. So scientists have discovered that the volcanoes on Venus are what we call shield volcanoes. And shield volcanoes are not as eruptive as many volcanoes that we typically think of when we think of volcanoes. This is a much more slow and steady kind of flow that we're going to see from this volcano. So we're going to replicate this type of flow here today with a couple of these ingredients. First, we're going to take some white vinegar and we're going to pour it into our container here. And it's okay if we spill, sometimes science is messy.
Messy science!
So we have our white vinegar. We're also going to add just a little bit of yellow food coloring because Venus, when we look at its surface, appears to be very yellow. This is mostly due to the sulfuric acid from the atmosphere. So we'll just go ahead and add a few of these drops. We'll swirl it up so it gets a nice color on it. Beautiful. And then we are also going to add some baking soda. Now maybe you've experienced this reaction before. If not, hopefully it's really surprising and fun for you, but let's see what happens. We're going to take our scoop and you can count down with me. We can count down together. We will pour it in 3, 2, and 1. Look at that! We have made a beautiful volcano that is oozing and gooing everywhere, but it's also kind of flowing slowly out.
Ooey and gooey and flowing slowly.
On Venus, this material would flow out to form a dome-shaped volcano. Hot cocoa. You know, cocoa's great for drinking, but it's also great for making impact craters.
Okay, everyone, let's go cratering!
Can you guess what planet I'm talking about? This is the smallest planet, it has no atmosphere, and is closest to the sun.
Oh, it's Mercury!
So Mercury has no atmosphere, which means that it's really open to getting hit by a lot of things out in space, specifically space rocks. We call these meteorites. Meteorites travel down to the surface of Mercury and impact the surface, leaving behind these large holes that we call craters. So I thought it would be really fun for us to make some craters on Mercury right here. For this activity, you are going to need a large tray or pan filled with flour, some cocoa, and some things to act as meteorites. First, we're going to take our cocoa and sprinkle it over the top of the flour to make the craters really stand out. Now it's time for the fun part. We're going to pick up these meteorites and make craters on the surface of Mercury.
What shapes do you think these meteorites will make?
And one more. Now what we see is the cratered surface of Mercury. If this were a real planet, these meteorites would have burned up on impact. So let's go ahead and remove them and take a look at what our craters look like. We can see there's lots of small, there's lots of large, many different shapes and sizes. And one of the coolest things about doing this activity is it helps us understand how astronomers, when they look at the surface of Mercury, can understand how the impacts happened, what they might have looked like, and what timeline they happened in. Not all meteorites fall straight down. Some come in from the side. Let's see what happens when we try this.
What do you think will happen when a meteorite flies in from the side?
What we see here is an oval impact from the meteorite. This shows us that the impact came in from the side, and it also happened later than the original impacts. And you can try dropping lots of different things on the surface of Mercury, like a marshmallow, a space banana, a tiny disco ball, a woolly mammoth, a giant ball,
It's time to make straw rockets!
Here's what you'll need. You're going to need 2 different types of straws, one that's skinnier and one that's wider. A rocket template, you can get one online, or you can even make your own out of any type of paper. You will need some scissors, a little bit of tape, and some colored pencils to color your rocket and, of course, give it a great name.
Like what kind of names, Ashley?
Like Pickle Pants, Andromeda, Space Cadet, Sneeze Factory, Strocket, Strocket 2.0, Cricket the Frog, Chocolate Milky Way, To Jupiter and Back, Gleepglorp, just in case the aliens are watching.
So how do we make these rockets?
First, you're going to need to draw a rocket shape. You could use a template or you can make your own. Then you're going to want to color your rocket and maybe even give it one of those great names we discussed. You can, of course, come up with your own.
Ashley named her rocket Cricket to the Moon, after her dog Cricket.
Then what you're going to do is you are going to take 2 straws, your thin and your wide one, and you are going to cut them to about 3 or 4 inches. You're going to want your thinner straw to be slightly shorter than your wide straw. Then you're going to tape your thinnest straw to the back of the straw rocket and slide it into the wide straw. And finally, launch your rocket. Feel free to make lots of different shapes of rockets and try all of them. You never know which one will fly best.